It's just part of my lexicon.
He's an actor. He's all about it. He's all good.
Okay, good. Excellent. It's the best way to raise your children.
That's what's up.
Speaking of which, I have to tell a story now that you brought that up. I was at a convention in Lafayette, Louisiana, and there was a little guy that came by the table. Mike was strong. Little guy came by the table with his dad. He was 4, and he had a chainsaw in his head. And I thought it'd be funny and say, hey, do you realize you have a chainsaw in your head? And I'm not kidding you. He looked at me and said, it's a fucking costume. I loved it, and I ended up taking a picture. Him and I, it's in my phone, him and I flipping each other off. 4 years old, man. It's a fucking costume.
I'm not a fan of kids and babies, but kids like that are pretty cool.
And I asked his dad about the cursing, and he said, we let him do it anywhere except for school.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's really the best thing, but
Yeah. Just as long as they don't get detention or have to call the parents
Yeah.
into the school, waste their time. Well, speaking of stories, you mentioned story. I got a story too. So it's a great honor to be here sitting with you, Kane Hodder, because the first Friday the 13th movie I watched was part 7. So I think it came out in '88, and
Correct.
I think I was around 7 or 8 years old, and I watched it during the day.
Around 7 or 8?
Yeah.
You know what you want?
I don't want to do that.
Oh.
That's what calculators are for. And yeah, I just remember watching it during the day and being like scared out of my mind, and riding my bicycle back home during the day, and I kept turning around to make sure Jason wasn't behind me. And
With a weed whacker?
Yeah, I legitimately thought that it was real, like this was a non-fiction movie, because my parents were very religious, so like they believed in, you know, Satan and shit like that. So I watched this movie at a friend's house, and I'm like so fucking scared. Just like riding my bicycle, I kept on like looking back, thinking that you would be back there behind me. And I always, yeah, just I have a connection, a personal connection with part 7, like because of that vivid memory. And the first one I watched, and like later in life, you know, being a huge fan of the franchise, even getting your face tattooed on me, and I genuinely believe that you brought such a brutality to that character. Like the way, like even though it's like you're wearing a mask, you can't see your face, but you're pissed. Like you're
Tried to be, yeah.
you're pissed. Like you brought that that actual anger, like hostility, and like severe, like fear in the character. So I wanted to know personally, what are some of your childhood fears? What were you afraid of when you were a child?
You know, I mean, I never had any of the typical fears.
Like ghosts and stuff?
Ghosts and heights and that kind of stuff. It never bothered me. And by the way, part 7 is my favorite.
It's so good. It's the best one.
And it has my favorite fire stunt that I've ever done. That movie came out, like you said, 1988, May 13th, which was a Friday, and when it was released in theaters. And it happened to be my now wife's birthday.
Oh, Susan.
Yep. And so she's like, what are we doing for my birthday? I said, well, I'm going to the Chinese theater to watch me kill people.
How romantic.
She stayed with me, but yeah, it was kind of interesting that it was her birthday, and I just wish the movie had been so destroyed by, the MPAA causing them to cut everything out of it.
Yeah.
There was so many good makeup effects and stuff, and none of it ended up in the movie. Every single kill in the movie was cut to almost nothing. And the movie's still decent, but it would have been so much better with all that stuff.
I know.
And, you know, you probably heard this a million times, but when I first put the makeup on in John Beekler's shop as a makeup test before we started shooting, I did movements in the mirror with the entire suit and makeup and everything on, just to see what I liked, because, you know, I've always been a fan of the character, and I thought, now this is my chance to play the character that I love. I got to do whatever I can to do justice to the character. So I did movements, and that's where I came up with the breathing thing, because I thought when I was standing staring at myself, it didn't look that threatening to me. I mean, it's a little scary because of how I looked, but I didn't look like I was about to explode. And then I tried the breathing thing, and I thought, oh, that works, because now it looks like any second he's just gonna go on a rampage.
It certainly personified anger. Like that, I just remember later after watching part 7, I'm like, well, now I have to go back to the beginning and watch all the other ones. And you're right, like I love them all, each uniquely for their standalone reasons, you know. And
Right.
like the other Jasons, in my personal opinion, they don't emote, you know. Like it's like Michael Myers doesn't really emote, but there's just something about the way that you played him, especially in part 7, where it was like you, like I said, like you were fucking pissed, and like you could tell how angry Jason really was, and it's a very amazing thing that a person who doesn't show their face can actually, you know,
I know, it's very,
accomplish that.
the two things an actor uses to be scary is facial expressions and voice.
Yeah,
I didn't get to use either one of those.
and you
So-
accomplished it very, very well. I mean, to the
And
point
I think a
where-
lot of people that played Michael in the past and even Jason before assumed that, well, there's nothing I can do, really. It can't be scary. And I just took it a different way and thinking, well, I have to do something to look scary.
Yeah.
And the first time somebody said to me at a convention, they said, what I love about what you do as Jason is when you're standing and let's say you're gonna go in this direction, and they say, I love how you turn your head and then your body. And the first time they said that, I said, I do. I didn't even realize I did that. It wasn't something on purpose, it was just something that felt right.
Yeah.
So that's when I started really realizing whatever feels natural seems to read well, so.
Yeah, and I think that's basically what defines talent. You're very talented.
Thank you, but for, we did part 7 in 1988. We did Jason Takes Manhattan the following year. And, not till after part 7 came out did anyone want to have me at a convention. And that's when I first started doing Fangoria conventions. And so for the time, like part 7 came out May 13th, as I said, then we started shooting Jason Takes Manhattan in less than a year after that. But I had done a few conventions, and I used to, when I first started signing stuff, complimentary, by the way, which, not anymore. But I used to sign Kane Hodder Jason #7, because I was at that point one of 7 guys that played the character. so I put number 7. Once I found out I was doing part 8, I dropped that. So if you ever see that autograph somewhere, I think it's more valuable because I only did it for like 10 months.
Oh, that's good to know.
And now I've done the 7, 8, 9, 10 since 2000.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You mentioned John Beekler. I am a big fan of John Carl Beekler, and very saddened by his recent passing. And I always, like when I was younger, knew him as a director because he directed Part 7. But then as I grew and became more and more of like an 80s horror fan, you know, like I love his work in special effects. Like every movie, like Spellcaster, like every movie he's worked on where he's done the special effects, like practical effects for me is the way to go. And yeah, he was very skilled and his art was just beautiful. And another movie that I find of his that he directed that I find so underrated is Ghoulies 3. No one ever talks about Ghoulies 3.
Ghoulies go to college.
Yeah, I think it's the best one. And John Beekler definitely brings a nostalgia to his art. Like, I don't know if that makes sense, but when I'm watching a movie, like it has like a feel where it's like I feel like I'm legit in my like parents' basement, you know what I mean? And the like campiness of it is like perfect for a sleepover. And Ghoulies 3, like I think he also did like that toilet. He like worked on like he made a toilet. Like, it's just amazing. But yeah, did you keep up your relationship with him over the years? Like,
Oh yeah, I mean, you know,
he seemed like such a nice guy.
yeah, he was fantastic, and I'm sure you've heard the story that he's the reason I played Jason. The single reason, because I had done Prison, the movie. With Vigo, and I was a stunt coordinator on the movie. Randy Harlan directed it, and John asked me while we were shooting, he said, you know, there's a character that works for 2 days toward the end of shooting that is going to be in full prosthetics. And he said, would you be interested in playing that character? And I said, well, sure, because I had done a little bit, I think I had done Alligator before that, where I was, if you ever see the movie Alligator, I did Alligator 2 also, but Alligator, I was in the alligator suit. And yes, so John said, you know, it's going to be an extensive makeup, a lot of prosthetics glued on, lenses, dentures, and full bodysuit, just like I ended up wearing in Part 7. And he was so happy with how I worked in that kind of makeup that was 1987. Following year, he said, I'm going to direct the next Friday the 13th, and I was very happy for him. And he said, I want you to play Jason. And I was like, what? And it was because of that character called Forsyth in Prison.
Yeah.
And Paramount was like, you know, kept saying, we don't know this guy. He doesn't have a name. And John just kept saying, just trust me, he's going to be good as the character. And they would say, well, he's not that tall and stuff like that. And he just kept saying, just trust me. And, you know, fortunately, we proved him correct when they liked what I did in Part 7, and I continued for the next 3 movies after that. But it was all because of Beekler.
Yeah.
And do you remember what I did in Ghoulies 3?
No. Were you the
Uh-huh. And how did I end up? You don't
did you
get
get
to
sucked
answer.
into the toilet? I can't remember.
I get my ass in the mop bucket. Go down the stairs at the school or whatever, something like that.
I have to say that one of my favorite things that you have done is your appearance on Arsenio Hall.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Can you please talk about this?
Okay.
Like, I need to know, like, was he in on it? Like, did you talk to him beforehand? Or like, tell me that.
They contacted me from the show and said, Arsenio wants you to be on the show as a guest. And I said, that's great. I don't think anybody really knows who I am, but I'll be happy to be a guest. And they said, well, we want you to be in character as Jason. And I was like, you want me to go on a talk show? And I don't talk when I'm as the character. And they said, yeah, that's the whole point. He'll make it funny, which he did. But the funny part was that when I got to the studio before I put on the costume, and it was the real costume from Part 8, the one I wore, and I still had it. And he said, I just want to ask you a favor. He says, please don't fuck with me when you're as the character. And normally, if somebody asks me that, I'm like, okay, well, I am gonna fuck with you. But it was early in my career, so I respected it. But he said, he goes, I'm really nervous about having you as the character in my presence. And I thought, okay, and you know, it was fun to do, and he asked me questions. I was laughing the whole time under the mask, but you can't tell. But if you ever watch it again, you can see at the end where he says, thank you for coming on, and he goes to shake my hand, and I shake his hand and I pull him towards me.
Yeah.
And you can see him actually get really nervous and stand up and get away from me.
He hides behind his chair.
Because he just was nervous, but that was really fun.
I love that. I watch that video all the time. I fucking love it. Earlier you had mentioned ghosts, like how you had like never been afraid of ghosts when you were a kid, but you run the Hollywood Ghost Hunters group. Have you ever actually seen a ghost or spooky?
No.
Anything spooky ever happened? No encounters?
We've done investigations all over the place, all the famous places, Waverly's, Sloss Furnace, and, you know, all these places that are so well known as with haunted stories and stuff. And, you know, when I started Hollywood Ghost Hunters with my buddy Rick, who's also a stuntman, and I just showed somebody today a picture of me as Metal Beast. Did you ever see that?
Project Metal Beast?
Yeah.
Yes.
I was the Metal Beast, and there's a scene where I pick up Barry Bostwick by the neck and put him up in the air. Stunt double was my buddy Rick, that we've been working together since Lone Wolf McQuaid.
That was like the first.
Fairly early on, but
David, is that David Carey?
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I played Carradine's #1 henchman or whatever. But Rick and I started the group, and when we founded the group, I told Rick that I think, in my opinion, almost everyone who ever does an investigation, everybody wants to have a story to tell. So the tiniest thing might happen, and they exaggerate it, even not knowing that they're exaggerating it, and make more out of it than it is. And I've always been very careful to not do that.
Yeah.
And it's got to be so irrefutable before I can get excited about it, instead of, well, it could have been a shadow, but it could have been nothing, or that noise, it could have been something else. whatever, so I'm very careful about that. So I really haven't had anything until, and I also, by the way, whenever we go to a location, I think the only way to feel uncomfortable when you're doing a paranormal investigation is I always find out where the most active, most scary, I guess, part of the location is, and I go there by myself. Because all these investigators always go with other people. When you go by yourself, it's far less comfortable. And I like that feeling about, hey, it's just me, my camera. Sometimes I have that voice box thing that says random words. I forget what the name of that is. Anybody?
Spirit box.
Huh? And so we were at Sansom. Where's that? Again? I went to a place that they said was the worst part of the location. I went there by myself with the camera and the spirit box, the voice box, whatever. And I had a camera facing out and then a camera on myself talking, and during my walking around, I, for some reason, really lost my balance and almost fell down. And I couldn't figure out why. It seemed to be no reason for it. And right then the voice box thing said pushed. And I thought, I mean, again, could be coincidental, but it was kind of interesting that it lost my balance for no reason, and then it said pushed. But that's about it for me. I mean, there's other things that could have been paranormal, but could have been natural too. So, it's fun to do. I am fascinated by the possibility, but
That's pretty cool. So speaking of stunts, I was looking at your credits, and we are at a Comic-Con, so I just wanted to mention that you did these stunts for Spawn, fantastic movie, Batman Forever, it's okay.
not great. It's probably the least.
It's the worst.
Yeah.
I didn't want to say that loud in case I'm offending somebody, but I can't get through that one.
No, Batman and Robin.
Batman and Robin is fucking awesome. And Demolition Man, another fun movie.
Daredevil, right?
And
Most people don't even realize what I did in Daredevil. There's a scene where Daredevil's father, right, gets beat up in an alley by, Michael Clark Duncan. His bad guys beat up Daredevil's father, and that was me beating his ass, so. But you can't really tell it's me, so.
yeah. And you were the stunt coordinator on a Who's the Boss episode?
Many of them.
Well, the episode that I wanted to ask you about was when Tony Danza was in a boxing match. Did you fight Tony Danza?
No, I coordinated the fight.
Okay, you didn't get in there?
No.
In the ring with
No,
Tony Danza? Like, how did I not know this? This is a very interesting fact.
Well, what about Days of Our Lives?
You did
Right?
do, yeah.
I did the stunts on Days of Our Lives for years.
Yeah, because like heavy shit happens in those soap operas, man. Murders.
At a time, whenever, I don't know if it still exists, but there's always a ratings period called sweeps. And whatever episodes of daytime TV are gonna air at that time, sweeps time, that's how they get their ratings and stuff. So all the soap operas started doing location location stuff, because the soap opera is typically in a studio. But they would go out for a few days and do some action scenes, and so that when the sweeps time would come up, they'd get higher ratings because it looked more like a movie. So I did high fall, fire, flipped a car, hung from a helicopter, all that stuff on Days of Our Lives, yeah.
And I was just curious, actually, like, what are some of your favorite musicians and bands that you listen to at home? Like, what do you listen to relax? And I don't know that relaxing, take away.
Kind of a metalhead still.
I know you are though. I was curious if there was any other types of music. Like, it's like people assume, you know, you're in the horror franchise, that you only watch horror movies, but I know you've also worked on action movies.
Right.
And I did also notice that you play a different character in all of the best of the best movies. I did part 2 is the best one.
Yeah.
With Wayne.
Yeah, that's right.
And, but would you, if somebody approached you, would you ever be interested in doing a drama? Well, we did comedy horror,
Yeah.
but what about like a drama, like a really sad, soft drama story?
As long as it has violence in it.
It has emotional violence.
And Monster.
Monster, oh yeah,
That was
with
a drama.
Christina Ricci.
No, yes, and Charlize
And
Theron.
Charlize Theron.
She won an Oscar for it.
So then, what's your favorite metal bands?
Metallica.
Nice. I'm actually going to go see Metallica this year. They're playing with Pantera.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they're doing like random shows with Pantera this year, so.
First time I felt like a big shot movie star was when I went with Greg Nicotero, you know him from
Yeah.
Walking Dead and stuff. He and I went to a Metallica show as, you know, VIP situation, and we were, I don't know if they still do it like this, but they used to have an area within the stage called the Snake Pit,
Yeah.
and it was VIPs only, so all the musicians were all around you, not just at the front of the stage, you're within the stage. And we watched the whole show from there, it was amazing, so.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Favorite album though?
Black one.
Really?
Yeah.
I'd have to
For
go
me.
with Kill 'Em All.
Yeah.
Ride the Lightning is a close second, but Black Album is pretty awesome.
I'm also a pretty big fan of Post Malone's music.
Who's that? I don't know who that is.
Yes, you do.
Who is that? Rapper? But I know you're a juggalo.
Yes.
Yes.
There you go.
Yes, I do, I enjoy
I moved to a new
ICP
city and I
Twisted.
found out that there is a giant juggalo community in Hamilton, Ontario. And I was like, holy shit, some of my best friends are juggalos. And my friends toured with ICP and they had the best time on that tour. They said that one of the guys was really nice and one of them was kind of standoffish. And I was like, well, I've never listened to music, but you partake in the Fago.
I have, but.
You don't go anywhere to be like, I need Fago.
No. It's not my favorite, but it's not terrible.
Does anybody in the audience has any questions for Kane? You, sir.
How was it being in the music video for ICP?
Yes, I did, which is my favorite ICP song, by the way. Another Love Song, which I think is a brilliant song. But I did some stunts in that video, and it was fun working with them because Twisted was in that video also. They used to tour with them, and now Twisted does their own thing, and they're still good friends. But it was interesting, I'll say that. But it was fun, and by the way, don't forget I did some comedy films.
Which one? Well, was that one on the beach?
Oh, God, yeah.
This one. House 2, the second story.
No, he did one before that.
Oh, no, way before, yes.
It was like a
But
beach
look at
movie,
that.
right? Yeah, that's amazing.
Just want to show everybody. Check this guy out.
Yes, that's my hair.
Hey, your hair was also very similar in Wishmaster.
Not that big though, was it?
Not that big, but it was mullety in Wishmaster. That kill, by the way, is amazing, I have to say.
Bob Schurtzman kept the glass door that was painted with my
Oh my God, that's amazing.
figure on it. He kept it at his house
I
for
love
years.
it.
I don't know if
I
he still
love
has
that
it. but-
movie.
Huh?
It's in a studio.
Is it?
That's awesome.
But what she's talking about is hard bodies.
Yeah, hard bodies, that's it,
Oh.
yes.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, you were like a
You were in
bully or
that?
a thug or something.
I was technically, my screen credit was older geek.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
I was 29 at the time. Older geek. I wore capris, you know what capris are? Pants, black shoes, black socks. My pants pulled up real high, and we were on the beach, bothering all the girls.
How was that different from today?
What?
How was that different from today?
Okay. Nothing's different about bothering girls. And then I did the Impractical Jokers movie. I don't know if you watch Impractical Jokers, but Q is a good buddy of mine, and he arranged for me to do the stunts and play Paula Abdul's bodyguard in the movie.
And Jason Goes to Hell, I just remember as a kid seeing it and not recognizing it until later on, they get to kill yourself. How did that feel? Was that your idea, or was that?
It was kind of my idea, yeah. Because I was like, man, when I first read the script, I was like, I'm not in this movie very much. So I should try to do something else, because normally I wouldn't have any time to play another character, but this time I did, so yeah, technically, I guess, I killed myself. Really, but kind of.
Back there, Grecian.
I have two questions. The first one was how much direction as a stunt double are you given, like direction, and how much like maybe you have to your own?
How much direction?
Like how much control do you have over your stunts?
Pretty much full control. Even if you're stunt coordinating, part of your job is to hire all the other stunt people on the film. But as a stunt player, if the stunt coordinator is confident enough, the stunt coordinator will let the stunt person kind of take control of how they're going to do the stunt, because they're the ones doing it. And it might be quite dangerous, so you like the person to kind of dictate how it's done. And so you get quite a bit of control that way. And what was the other?
The other question was you appeared very briefly in the movie Frozen, which is on the chairlift as a snowplow driver. I was wondering if that was on purpose as a cameo, or if that was just a part you played just come on.
Well, I was a stunt coordinator also on that movie, Frozen. Not the animated. Yeah. And we shot it in a ski resort in Utah. And I currently have a house not far from there now. Kind of interesting to be up there where I froze my ass off for a few weeks. But it was, it's an Adam Green movie, and I love working with Adam because he did all the action movies and stuff. So, and I don't think there's another actor, horror actor, that's known for a character that has killed basically all the other horror actors in the Hatchet movies. I've killed Jason, Derek Mears, Leatherface, R.A. Mahalo, Candyman, Tony, Tyler May, Michael Myers, Freddie, and the first one, and, you know, I really don't think there's anybody else that could say that they, and I also think that I've killed more people on film than any actor in history. Without a gun, I have to say more these days, because somebody said, well, you know. But without a gun, I think I've murdered more people on film than any actor ever.
There's goals and then there's goals. You were talking about Adam Green. I'm a huge fan of his work. I found that when Hatchet, right before Hatchet came out, I felt like there was this lack of slashers. The genre was, you know, a little bit at a standstill. And when I watched the trailer for the first Hatchet movie, I was like, yes, finally, like a fucking like old school, like 80s slasher is like making a comeback, it's making a resurgence, and like that movie was just so good. And I love all of his work, and one that people usually don't talk about very often is Digging Up the Marrow. And you play yourself. Everybody in that movie plays themselves. You guys seen Digging Up the Marrow? I highly recommend it. Ray Wise plays this like crazy person that tells Adam Green like, hey, you're a horror movie director. I know where there's some real monsters. And Adam Green goes to investigate it and is trying to convince you it's real, and you're like, this isn't real? Like, what is this? Like a new movie that you're working on? That movie is very underrated, and I love Holliston as well. Like, Holliston is such a fucking funny show.
Yeah.
Dee Snider's character just kills me. That is such a fantastic show, but I do love that he brought this, like, he definitely, I feel he is very responsible for bringing back the slasher, like, resurgence in, like, the later 2000s.
And he first contacted me saying, I have a new slasher that's gonna be several films. And nobody knew who he was at the time. And he said, I want you to play the killer. I was like, oh God, I've heard this a million times.
Yeah.
It's a new next franchise.
Yeah.
And so the more I talked to him, I got a better feeling about it. And then I said, okay, I'll play your character, but you gotta give me a scene where I can show some emotion. And that's why I played Victor's father with the crying scene, because I wanted to show people, yeah, I can kill people all day long, but I can also do other stuff. And I just wanted to be able to feature that. And he said, no problem. So he wrote it, because it wasn't in the original script. And that first Hatchet movie has my all-time favorite kill in it.
Is it when you rip the woman in half? Her mouth, like?
Yes.
Oh my God, that part is so good. That part is amazing.
Oh, it is so brutal and one take.
And like, cause the camera like kind of like goes around, so
And
you
he was
see like
so
all the
nervous.
angles.
Adam was so nervous because he said, we only have the budget to do this one time, because you're gonna tear the whole head apart, and it's gonna take a week to rebuild and a lot of money to reconstruct it and everything. And he said, I don't want you to just grab it and pull it apart. When you grab the actress, I'm gonna start a 360 camera move around, and that's where he hid the edit, going from me grabbing the actress and then taking the prosthetic head. And he said, please, you have to make sure you don't rip the head apart until the camera lands over here. And, you know, I knew it would be fine, but he was just so worried that he wouldn't catch it on camera and that it'd be wasted. But it's so perfectly timed.
I love it.
As soon as the camera lands, you see the head rip apart. I hear.
Like you just, it's like you see the skin like slowly like ripping apart, like fantastic.
And then I take the top of her head off, and then her tongue is.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Can't really see that so much in the movie, but.
Horror buzz.
I had two questions. Well, first, nice to meet you. Why do you think people love horror movies so much?
Wow. Tricky question. I guess people love to be scared when they know they're safe. I don't know. I mean, it's just an emotion that, you know, is fun to experience if it's not real, you know, or you're actually fearing for your life or something. But, and I always found it kind of funny that almost everybody I've ever killed in a movie, after we finished that scene, almost without fail, they all say, "God damn, that was a little more rough than I thought it would be." But then it looks better, and they understand, you know, you gotta be kind of rough, but still in control so you don't hurt somebody.
One of my favorite roles of yours, aside from Jason, is Leslie Vernon. How did you end up getting in that movie? Because I was so surprised the first time I saw that. I was like, hey.
It was just based on, you know, having played different killers, and then people thought, hey, it's a cool cameo to have Kane or somebody that's known for doing certain things to do something else, because it's like an Easter egg type thing. And people always come up to my table and say, I didn't know you were in so-and-so, but I just watched it and I saw a little flash of you, you know. So I think it's almost fun for the filmmakers to do that, but the rise of Leslie Vernon, yeah.
That's a good one too.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to ask, when you were approached by, I guess it's Ilphonic and Gun Media to do the kills for the Friday the 13th game, did you have any freedom to change or adjust some of the kills from previous Jasons that weren't yours?
Good question. I mean, obviously, I recreated some of the ones I did in the game, and they were Gun Media is very open, because I guess they figured if anybody knows the character, I do. So they were very open to my suggestions about stuff, as long as it, you know, wasn't something that made the game too complicated or something. They were all for it. And, you know, I didn't really incorporate any other Jason kills other than ones I did, but, you know, I think maybe I kind of should have.
Because I was thinking more like, for example, just you did have to do some of like part 2 Jason's stuff, right?
Like
so
what?
I was wondering if there was just any type of adjustment that you may have made that would have looked similar, but you had your own twist to it.
Yeah, I mean, not really. I just, if I did anything that somebody else did in the past, I almost felt like I shouldn't change it too much, because it wasn't my kill. So if I'm gonna recreate something they did, I think I should honor their performance by doing it the way they did it. And, you know, and you know, we have the new game coming out.
Yep.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and it comes out August 18th. And I did all the motion capture for Leatherface, and I tried to make that reminiscent of Gunner, because he was the best Leatherface and he was a good friend. And I was a little surprised they asked me to do it, because it's not a character I play, but then when they explained why, they said, well, we want it to feel like Gunner. And what better person than someone who's used to mimicking another actor's performance? That's what you do as a stunt double. When you stunt double someone, even if you're just doing the stunt, I always thought it was important to try and make it look like that actor. And so that it doesn't take you out of the movie by saying, that's a stunt double. It doesn't even move the same way. So I always tried to do that, and then I understood why they asked me to, because I had to mimic R.A. Mahaloff as Leatherface in Chainsaw 3.
Did you get to do the dance, chainsaw?
Yes.
Okay.
Not as easy as you might think, because we used a real chainsaw like Gunner did, and that's fucking heavy. Swing it above your head and do all the stuff that he did with it. I never realized how impressed I should have been by his performance because of that until I tried to do it myself.
What was your favorite and least favorite stunts that you have ever done?
Like I said, the fire stunt in part 7 was my favorite fire stunt I've ever done, because I was on fire, fully engulfed for so long. Most fire stunts, when you're totally engulfed, you're on fire for 10 seconds, 12 seconds, because, it gets really hot. And on that movie, and you always, as the stunt performer, you always hit the ground, and that's when your safety people know it's time to put you out. If you don't go down, face down on the ground, safety doesn't come in. And you go by how it feels. And you can't wait till the very last second until you're almost like it's too hot to stand anymore. Because by the time you hit the ground and get put out, there's still heat within the layers, so you can still get burned even after you get put out. So you really have to know what you're doing and time it properly. But when I did that one, I was on fire for 44 seconds, and I couldn't believe that I wasn't getting more uncomfortable as I was going. By the time, if you watch the movie again, by the time I do go down to the ground, it seems like half the fire is gone, because I was burning all the fuel for so long, it just started dying down on its own. So that's why I like that one. And there's been car stunts that I've loved doing, when you jump a vehicle or flip a car or something. It's exciting because you never know how you're gonna land. If you do a pipe ramp, it's called, where you drive at high speed and you go up a steel ramp like this. It's just almost like a bar, and you take the car and do this, and then that's what makes it spin in the air. And you never know how the first impact is going to be on the ground, so you want it to be more of a glancing blow when it first hits. If it lands flush on the roof, then you're going to probably get a concussion. But I love doing high falls and stuff. I'm kind of bigger than most stunt people that do high falls, because it's not an easy thing to do, and the more you weigh, the harder you hit when you land in your catcher, they call it. And so the only thing I never did, the only aspect of stunts I never did was horses, because I never learned how to ride a horse. And there's so many stunt people that are former cowboys that they're great on horses. So that's the one thing I never did.
Good night. I know you said
keep acting as long as you can in front of the camera, doing stunts as long as you can, but have you thought about possibly getting on the other side of the camera with production or directing?
I've thought about directing. I don't have any real interest in producing that much, and I'm not a writer. I can't, do that kind of stuff, but I have considered directing, and I think it might be, kind of an interesting angle to have, especially a horror movie, directed by somebody that you've watched playing characters, because I think it makes you consider it more, and so maybe in the future.
The other half of that was, in all the action films, why could you not catch Danielle Harris?
How about Perry Shan?
Fair enough.
Never got that fucking guy. He played a different character every movie.
Yeah.
It was almost like ludicrous by the time we got to the fourth one. But, yeah.
My question was, after Freddy versus Jason was seen out of sequence with the other two movies, and it was supposed to go on to Freddy versus Jason versus Ash, and then Freddy versus Jason versus Michael Myers. What happened on that?
I think that most of that was rumors. I don't think there was ever a possibility of Freddy, Jason, and Michael, or Ash, because the only reason they ever did Freddy and Jason is that it was finally owned by the same company, both characters, New Line Cinema. So, because they could never work out a deal if one was Paramount and one was New Line or Warner Brothers or something, whatever it was, they could never get it worked out for an agreeable deal for both sides. I just think it was always something that fans wanted, but was never really that possible.
Well, they released the Freddy versus Jason versus Ash one at a comic.
Yes,
I thought it was interesting.
right. Which I've signed quite a few times. And Bruce is a buddy, so it would have been fun to do something with him. And Robert and I had known each other since before either one of us was known as our characters. So, yeah.
And my other question was, how much of Jason Part 8 did you actually spend in New York?
Who knows that? How many days of shooting did we spend in New York on Jason Takes Manhattan?
Wasn't it like 1 day?
1 day.
One day?
The very last night of shooting was in Times Square.
The ghetto blaster.
That's the last one. And the entire film was shot in Vancouver, Canada. And at the end of that, we went to New York for one night, and that will always be one of the most amazing days of shooting I've ever had on a film, because, being in the costume in the middle of Times Square with hundreds of people watching, held back by NYPD barricades, and I'm out in the middle doing what I was doing. It just was just amazing. And I'm sure you've heard that I never took the mask off the whole night of shooting because I didn't want to ruin it for the people watching. Kind of
Awesome.
a little too method, but
Good on you, that's awesome.
Question, first of all, thanks for coming, you're awesome. I'm just wondering if you have any martial arts background or weapons training to help you in your stunts or fight scenes?
some martial arts training, not extensively, but enough to do fight scenes and look okay on camera. You fight with somebody like Chuck Norris or something like that, you don't want to look stupid. So I did do some training, but basically just to look decent on camera. because, you know, there's some actors you do fight scenes with that do stuff that you never rehearsed. And as a stunt person, you don't like that. The actor will throw in something that you never rehearsed and often injure you because of that. And, you know, I've had some experiences with that. Some actors I don't care to work with anymore, Steven Seagal, because I think they're not professional. You know,
Because you were in Under Siege.
Under Siege,
Yeah, you were in Under Siege.
Out for Justice, Fire Down Below. Yeah.
Fuck that guy.
Did you have any input on Jason's aesthetic in the movies that you were in? Like, his look changes, like the mask slightly on his head, the shape of his head, the texture of it, and like his outfit.
Not really, no.
No.
I mean,
I just wondered if there was like a reason for it, because like his head specifically changes a lot. You know, like the shape of it, the mask, the way the straps are.
the mask changes every movie too, yeah. I think it's just basically every movie that I did had a different makeup effects person doing it. And they all wanted to do their own design. So that's why the mask especially changes drastically every movie. From part 7 to part 8 was nothing similar at all.
Your face though in part 7, probably because of John Beekler, like that's another reason why I love that one a lot, because when you see your face, like it's just so grotesque.
Yeah, and
Maggots everywhere.
yeah, when we first did the makeup test, you know, it took 3.5 hours to put that stuff on for part 7. And when we first did the test, we did the entire application, and then I took it off. I said it looked great, and I said to John, I said, well, how many days do you think we're gonna do this kind of makeup? Because I wear the hockey mask, and for almost the whole movie. And he said, we're gonna do the makeup every day for 2 months. Every day, 3.5 hours of gluing the shit on. And then the hockey mask goes on. And I was like, why do I have to do the makeup every day when you never see it? He said, well, you do see it over here. And it's true, because, you know, whenever I would go like that, you could see my teeth moving here, which looked pretty amazing. And even with the hockey mask on, because part of it was broken off. And then I kind of understood. I didn't like it because it gets old. And you start shooting at 6 a.m. sometimes. And so I'm in the makeup chair at 2:30. 3.5 hours before you start your shooting day. So.
And when you're done shooting?
And then it takes an hour to take the shit off.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Because it's all glued, it's all pieces glued so that it moves with your face. And, you know, it looked amazing. I kept the dentures and lenses. They have the Victor Crowley teeth and the lenses also.
Did you ever put on the dentures and like scare kids at trick-or-treating?
Did Susan make you wear them at night?
Huh?
Did Susan make you put the dentures on?
No, you don't want to see that stuff.
With all the movies since 2009, it's been 14 years since we last got a film, and Peacock's got this new series apparently coming out. You think it's time we're getting the final 13th film of the Friday the 13th franchise?
I think they should. I mean, how do you do Friday the 13th, or 12, and not 13?
Like do like a Son of Jason or something, like they're experimenting on Jason and they want a clone for a fresh tissue.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard any kind of rumors or anything about it, but I'm sure they will eventually do one more.
Yeah.
Direct star and write it.
You're saying I can't kill people? twist her head off about it.
We have time for a couple more.
What do you think is an underrated horror movie that people should watch?
Underrated horror movie. I mean, I don't know if you really, you know, I'm surprised more people haven't seen Monster. Even though she won an Oscar for that role, a lot of people have never seen the movie. And it was a small budget movie. And I think even with her notoriety playing that character, I still think it's underrated with all the other stuff, because, you know, I was telling people that we shot that scene where I played the undercover cop to get Charlize out of the bar so we could arrest her. We shot in a bar in Daytona Beach, I think it was, and it was at the actual bar where Eileen Pornos was arrested. So we shot it in the exact same spot, which is pretty amazing to me, but don't forget that guy over there. I wanted to ask.
Oh, you're all the way over there.
We all know each other. Yeah. Anybody that has played Jason, we all do these kind of shows together. We all know each other. We work together in other films typically. And even some of the guys that say they played Jason, but played the character for 8 seconds. Ari. And, you know, there's quite a few people that did one scene, for instance, and as a character, and then they do conventions saying they played Jason. I was thinking, well, you did one shot.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming, and it is a Comic-Con, so I have to ask you a question.
Oh boy.
Are you Star Trek or Star Wars?
Well,
Because I know you played a Jem'Har soldier in DS9. And I
did.
think DS9 is the best one.
Absolutely.
Even though Next Generation is my favorite, DS9 is the best one. And I was like,
yeah, I did several episodes of
as a
Jem'Har. No, not Dar. Jem'Har. So I'd probably say Star Trek. Sorry.
Woo! Don't apologize. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being here. It's been a pleasure and an honor to sit up here with you. Apparently somebody out there wants to sing you a song. And yeah, keep scaring children. Thanks for not farting.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for coming out.
Thanks for your